survivors. The infection is in decline. Seek others and rebuild.
Most new infection-free zone players lose their first settlements inside of 2 weeks, and almost every single time it comes down to the same handful of mistakes. Maybe you expanded too fast, maybe you forgot to arm your towers, or maybe, and this is the sneaky one, you just didn't realize the trees around your base don't grow back. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to pick your starting city, set up your base, manage your survivors, and survive that first brutal month without the 15 hours of trial and error it took me to figure this stuff out. Let's get into it. What is infection-free zone? So if you're brand new, infection-free zone is a city builder crossed with a real-time survival game. And the twist that makes it special is that it's built on real-world maps. You can type in literally any address on Earth, your hometown, a famous city, even your own street, and the game generates that location, building by building, for you to survive in. That's honestly half the fun. Watching gameplay of someone surviving in Tokyo is interesting. Watching yourself try to survive on the street you grew up on hits very differently. On top of that real world hook, you've got everything you'd expect from a deep survival city builder: base building, resource management, survivor assignments, scavenging runs, and of course, the infected, who get aggressive and numerous the moment the sun goes down. But here's the part most beginners completely miss. This isn't a game where you build a city and slowly grow it like a typical city builder. Every building you don't actively defend is a building the infected can walk straight into. Space is a liability, not just an opportunity. Keep that in your back pocket. We're going to come back to it constantly. Choosing your starting location. Your very first real decision happens before you even build anything, picking where you start. When you're choosing a tile, the game color codes population density. Green areas have fewer infected nearby. Orange and red areas have a lot more. For your first run, pick green every time. As tempting as it is to drop yourself into the middle of a massive city for the loot, that density works against you early on. More infected means more night attacks before you have any defenses worth mentioning. So what does a beginner-friendly start actually look like? You want a cluster of small to medium buildings, ideally with some kind of natural choke point, a river, a single bridge, a narrow street layout, because that lets a handful of survivors hold off attacks that would otherwise overwhelm an open suburb. However, this part has a hidden catch. Picking a spot surrounded by trees isn't just nice scenery. Wood is your most important early resource, and trees do not respawn once you've cut them down. Choosing a start without nearby forest means you'll be desperate for wood by day 10. Rural and suburban starts are friendlier for your first playthrough. Big, dense downtown cores are the hard mode option. Save those for once you actually know what you're doing. Your first day. Okay, you've picked your spot. Here's exactly what to do in your first in-game hours. Step 1. Pause. Immediately. The game keeps running the second you load in, and panicking through your opening decisions is how half of beginner runs go sideways before lunch. Use spacebar to freeze time and actually look at your surroundings. Step 2. Scout the buildings right around your starting squad. You're looking for which ones have food, which ones are empty, and which ones already have infected inside that you'll need to clear. Step 3. Get your starting squad moving. Don't go far. Your first scavenging runs should hit the buildings immediately next door, not 3 blocks away. Here's something the game never tells you. Clearly, buildings with food inside usually show small visual cues on the rooftop, little container, or crate icons. Learning to spot those from the map view saves you a ton of wasted scouting trips. Step 4, start converting a building into storage almost immediately. You'll be hauling resources back constantly, and without dedicated storage, things get messy fast. And step 5, the one people forget before night falls, get every single survivor back inside a secured building. Don't leave anyone out in the open. The infected are drawn to movement and noise, in that order, and a single straggler outside at night can trigger an attack your base isn't ready for yet. Resources explained. Let's quickly break down what you're actually managing, because beginners almost always misjudge what matters most. Food keeps your population fed and directly affects morale, and morale affects how efficiently everyone works, so this isn't optional busy work. Medicine treats your injured survivors. Skip it, and wounded squad members linger in bad shape far longer than they should, which weakens your defense exactly when you need it most. Wood is your earliest, most important building block, used for basic construction, tools, and early weapons. Remember, it doesn't regenerate, so treat it like a limited resource from day one. Scrap and building materials come mostly from dismantling buildings around you. It's tempting to leave structures standing because they look useful, but a controlled demolition for materials is often the better long-term play. Fuel keeps your vehicles running once you unlock them. Electronics feed your tech upgrades, and weapons and ammunition are obviously what keeps your squads alive in a fight. But here's the part most beginners completely miss. They hoard. They sit on stockpiles of wood and scrap just in case, instead of actually building with them. Resources sitting in storage aren't helping you survive, they're only useful once they're turned into walls, towers, and tools. Building your base. Now let's talk about actually building this thing. Your headquarters should be a small to medium building, not the biggest one on the map. A massive HQ sounds powerful, but it's harder to defend and harder to fully staff early on. Save the giant buildings for scavenging loot instead. From there, expand outward in a tight, compact cluster, ideally somewhere around 10 to 15 buildings total to start. The tighter your layout, the shorter the walking routes for your workers, and the easier it is for your defenders to cover each other. Walls and barricades matter, but here's a tip. A lot of experienced players swear by basic watchtowers with armed survivors are often more efficient early on than a long stretch of wall, because the infected tend to target towers first, funneling the fight to a spot you control. You'll also want dedicated workshops for crafting, housing, so your population isn't crammed into your HQ, and eventually some form of power once you unlock it, since several upgraded buildings depend on it. And don't ignore repairs. A damaged wall or building looks fine until the night it suddenly isn't. So get into the habit of patching things up during the day before it becomes an emergency. Survivor management. Your people are honestly your most important resource, more than wood, more than ammo. You've got workers handling production, scavengers out looting, and guards holding the line at your defenses. Assigning the right person to the right job makes a massive difference. Someone naturally better at combat is wasted stacking crates in a warehouse. Construction teams need downtime too. Working a survivor non-stop sounds efficient, but fatigue drags down their output. So resting people is just as productive as working them, even though it doesn't feel that way at first. Injuries slow your squads down hard, which is exactly why medicine matters so much. An injured fighter isn't just weaker, they're often pulled out of action entirely. However, this mechanic has one hidden catch: morale isn't just a flavor stat. Low morale tanks your production across the board, sometimes by a huge margin. Keeping people fed, well, housed, and not overworked isn't a nice to have. It's one of the biggest efficiency levers in the entire game. Combat. Let's talk about surviving the night, because this is where most new bases fall apart. The infected behave predictably. Once you understand them, they're pulled toward movement and noise, which means a squad standing in the open during an attack is basically ringing a dinner bell. Watchtowers armed with appropriate weapons are your best early defense. An unarmed tower, or one with mismatched weapons for the survivors inside, is basically decoration. Make sure whoever's stationed there actually has guns to use. Positioning your squads matters too. Don't bunch everyone into a single building. Spread your defenders to cover multiple approach routes, because the infected will find the weakest point if you leave one open. Before you do that, there's something the game never tells you clearly. You can actually use this pathing behavior against the infected. Position A squad where they'll be spotted, then pull back through a defended choke point. The horde will redirect to chase them, walking straight into your kill zone instead of hitting your base wherever it's weakest. The biggest beginner mistake in combat: engaging zombies out in the open street instead of fighting from inside a building. Buildings give you cover and a defensive edge. The street gives the infected the advantage every time. Exploration. Scouting is how you find food, weapons, and new survivors, but it's also one of the easiest ways to lose a squad if you get greedy. Early on, keep your scavenging close to home. The temptation is to push toward that big juicy building 3 blocks away. But distance equals risk, and a squad caught far from base when night falls is in serious trouble. A good rule of thumb: always know how long it'll take your squad to get home, and start that return trip with plenty of daylight to spare. As you build up stronger squads and better gear, you can push further out for bigger rewards. But that's a mid-game move, not a day 3 move. Research and progression. Research is your long-term engine. It unlocks better defenses, more efficient production chains, upgraded equipment, and eventually vehicles that completely change how you scavenge. Early priorities should lean toward whatever boosts your immediate survival: better weapons, stronger walls, and improved food production. The flashy late game stuff can wait. Vehicles, once unlocked, are genuinely a game changer. They let you scavenge faster, carry more, and even outrun the infected at night when a squad on foot would be in serious danger. 15 beginner mistakes that will destroy your settlement. Alright, let's go rapid fire through the mistakes that kill almost every first playthrough. 1. Expanding too fast. More buildings means more to defend, with the same number of people. Grow your walls only as fast as you can actually staff them. 2. Not collecting enough food early. It's easy to deprioritize food when nothing's on fire yet, but a starving population is a slow motion collapse. 3. Ignoring medicine. Beginners treat it as a side resource until half their squad is injured and useless at once. 4. Sending everyone out scavenging at the same time. That leaves your base wide open. Always keep someone home guarding the walls. 5. Not preparing defenses before night. The infected don't wait for you to be ready, so build that habit of checking your defenses every single afternoon. 6. Ignoring morale. It quietly tanks your efficiency, and by the time you notice, production has already been suffering for days. 7. Poor wall and tower placement. Walls with gaps or towers with no clear line of sight give you a false sense of security. 8. Wasting ammunition. Firing wildly at distant single infected burns through a resource you can't always replace quickly. 9. Not repairing buildings. A cracked wall today is a breached wall next week. 10. Hoarding resources instead of using them. We touched on this earlier. Stockpiles don't protect you, built structures do. 11. Exploring too aggressively. Greedy scavenging runs are one of the most common ways beginners lose entire squads. 12. Forgetting power once it becomes relevant. Several upgraded buildings stop functioning properly without it. 13. Not specializing survivors. Treating every survivor as interchangeable wastes the strength some of them naturally have. 14. Ignoring production chains. Raw resources are far less useful than the upgraded materials they can become. Don't let things sit unprocessed. 15. Trying to build everything immediately. You don't need every building type on day 5. Build what keeps you alive first. Expand the rest later. If you walked away from this video remembering only one section, honestly, make it this one. Pro tips. Now that you know what not to do, here's what the experienced players are actually doing differently. 1. Scavenge in coordinated groups rather than solo squads, so you clear buildings faster and cover each other if infected show up. 2. Favor compact wall layouts with towers at the corners instead of long, unbroken walls. Towers draw aggression and concentrate your firepower. 3. Build your early economy around wood and food before chasing anything fancy. Everything else depends on having those two stable. 4. When a resource runs short, fix the production chain instead of just scavenging harder for a temporary patch. 5. Use narrow streets, bridges, and doorways as natural choke points instead of fighting in open areas. 6. Prepare for larger hordes well before they show up, since defenses you build in a panic are rarely as effective. 7. Keep your production buildings prioritized over decorative or convenience buildings in the early game. 8. Rotate your survivors so nobody's running on empty fatigue for days at a time. 9. Try to make every single day productive. Even small tasks like a short scavenging run or partial repairs add up fast over a full playthrough. And 10. Scale your base in deliberate phases. Secure a small core completely before pushing your walls outward, rather than spreading thin, trying to claim territory all at once. Final thoughts. Look, infection-free zone is supposed to be tough. It's not a game that holds your hand. And honestly, that's a big part of why it's so satisfying once things finally click. You're going to lose a squad at some point. you might lose an entire settlement before you really get the hang of it. That's normal. Every single experienced player has a horror story from their first few runs. And because every map is generated from a real location, no two playthroughs ever really feel the same. The lessons from this video apply everywhere, but how you apply them in, say, a coastal town versus a dense downtown grid is always going to be a little different. So tell me, what city did you start in? How long did you survive before things went sideways? And honestly, what's the mistake that got you? If this saved you some frustration, a like helps a ton. And if you want more infection-free zone breakdowns as I keep playing, go ahead and subscribe. Alright, go build something that survives the night. See you in the next one.